So this is mostly a test to try out this new lens, but I'm also going to do something absurd, which is break down Tommy Fury versus KSI, something I don't think many people on my channel want to see, but I do have some deep thoughts on it. And hopefully if you're fans of KSI and Tommy Fury, you might want to stick around and watch some of these other great fighters I talk about. One thing I'm learning is you got to figure out who your audience wants to see you talk about, right? I'm trying to grow my audience on this YouTube platform. We've put about a week in of trying to figure out what you, the viewers, want. And one good thing is maybe subscribe to the channel if you don't already, if this is your first time to the channel, and also get interactive so you can let me know in this video, hey, I like this type of video, or Lukie, you're tripping, and send me a suggestion of videos that you guys would like. I just saw this come through in some DMs through my social media platforms that people want me to talk about this fight. It's KSI versus Tommy Fury. I've never once covered a KSI fight in my life, and I'm going to unpack my kind of frustrations with KSI. I do appreciate that KSI and Logan Paul started the influencer boxing thing. They were the first influencers I saw to fight when they had their first fight in 2019, I want to say. And it was an exhibition. I didn't watch it. I didn't care. It didn't really mean much to my life. But they sold out an arena. And that told me that they had a far greater influence than what I understood in the sport of boxing. KSI, I think, is doing a lot of the things people blame Jake Paul for. Jake Paul has very astutely built a company that I think has kind of become very boxing-centric. You know, he's a boxer. He's taking on these kind of known names, like he's taking on Nate Diaz, who, you know, there's probably going to be some form of weed paraphernalia occurring this week. You know, there's going to be some confrontation. You know, 30 to 40 guys are going to be with Nate Diaz at some point. There's going to be a level of Stone Cold Steve Austin, Nate Diaz in this fight with Jake Paul, and that's something a lot of fans enjoy. It's entertaining, and there's going to be a high replay value for those that find Nate Diaz fun to watch. And then Jake Paul, internet guy. It's like a duality that's very interesting. You got, in theory, though not reality, you look at Jake Paul as like a guy who's an internet nerd guy. He's actually a big, goofy, athletic, strong, tough guy. We found this out when he absolutely went through Nate Robinson. When Jake Paul beat Nate Robinson, he was so talented, it was like, okay, he can't just beat up a pro athlete because he's actually talented at the sport of boxing. He actually has to fight limited forms of boxers, and it was impressive that he was able to beat Anderson Silva, even though Anderson Silva is 50 years old. There's a level of thinking he had to do in this fight. With Nate Diaz, there's a level of toughness he's going to have to show to beat Nate Diaz. Back to KSI, what's frustrating to me about KSI is he's fighting kind of the type of opposition I think people are saying Jake Paul is. So he's kind of fighting helpless opposition, people that have been built to order, built to lose. Famous people in his circle. I don't really know what his stuff is, but he speaks to a large audience. I think it's a gamer crowd. People watch him. He has a brilliant way to connect with his fans because they are fiercely loyal. My frustrations with KSI has been he's brought Misfits Boxing in. Misfits Boxing is doing big numbers, and I think it's going to be, in my opinion, sadly, a bit of the future of boxing, where it's people that don't take boxing serious. You got a lot of nerds or commentators that have no respect for their opponent, and they're going to take social media tricks that they've learned by saying sensational things to grab headlines and have people reshare them, being basically animated cartoon characters for the internet, so then they get larger viewerships, and then that turns into a monetized product. Boxing's built on humility and humble. That's the only way to be successful. We recently saw this with Terrence Crawford. He was very humble every step of the way, and that showed in the ring when he was a killer in the ring. The real killers don't talk. A lot of what we're seeing with Misfits Boxing are, in my opinion, very scared, very nervous influencers who are doing a lot of lip wrestling and tongue tasseling with their opponent, and they're thinking that comes off as real tough, but it comes off as real corny. And KSI, I think, is culprit number one of this because he's built a promotional entity that hasn't truly kind of gotten behind any professional boxers. It's gotten behind kind of weird YouTube celebrities. We've seen women flash their breasts after winning a fight on these type of cards. It's just been idiocracy of boxing. There's a movie called Idiocracy. If you've never seen it, Google it. But it's basically the idiocracy of boxing. It's playing to the lowest common denominator. It's the Jerry Springer of boxing. It's a very dumbed down product. And maybe if you don't enjoy boxing or you find boxing dull, maybe this really speaks to you because it's just a very simple way of boxing. So maybe this is how boxing is going to get repurposed to the casual fan because UFC got so exciting and all that. But what I wanted to say about this is Tommy Fury isn't really a boxer, but he has a boxing pedigree, and I think he has a very good chance. I don't know when this fight is happening, but the news comes out the week Jake Paul's fighting because obviously all these guys know how to use the internet. They know how to mess with the social media metrics. So this KSI, he's going to drop the news, so he's going to kind of ride the momentum because they probably have parallel fan bases, and it really feels like it's going to be the battle of the supervillains or the superheroes between Jake Paul and KSI. I think that what's interesting, though, is Tommy Fury, for those unaware, Tommy Fury beat Jake Paul earlier this year. They're not rematching, and now Tommy Fury has like a real interesting place possibly in boxing where he could beat two of the largest influencers who kind of moonlighted as pro boxers at a point in their career. He could beat them in back-to-back fights, possibly try for a bigger fight, but really just kind of have this career of beating online celebrities. And that could be a thing for him. So I think that's an interesting element to this because I don't think Tommy Fury's ever going to really go beyond what he is. He's more of like a reality star and a model than he is, I don't know, a pro boxer. It seems like he has other endeavors. It seems like women are attracted to him. It seems like he's more in this space than he is Tyson Fury, who's his family member, or Huey Fury, who's his family member. That being said, I do kind of foresee at some point Jake Paul kind of runs the gamut of who he can fight. KSI, once again, apparently he does really big numbers. Apparently he got a contract on DAZN. I wouldn't even be surprised if his DAZN fights do better than some of the real boxing promotions. I wouldn't be surprised if a network invests in his product over a boxing promotion in the near future. We're leading to Jake Paul versus KSI. I guess I want to know, I think that Jake Paul has a commitment to the sport and wants to be a world champion. I don't get that same vibe from KSI. I feel like he's found something that he somewhat enjoys. It's a way for him to stay fit, but it's also like, I'm so cool, I'm so tough. And I have great concerns about Misfits Boxing because I feel like someone can get really, really hurt in these type of fights. When you look at Creator Clash, to me, that's a much safer thing because you have brilliant boxing minds working behind the scenes. With Misfits Boxing, maybe there are, but those minds need to be more on Front Street for me to see. What I've seen so far is just kind of exploitation. And I guess that so far is the legacy of KSI in boxing, is exploitation. Maybe that's his YouTube legacy. I don't know much about the guy, but it seems like exploitation is what he has brought to the sport of boxing because he's exploiting different types of, or how do I say this, differences in people in extremes, pitting them against each other. And then it's like his fights. He fought two guys in one night. Both of them are helpless. I think one was like weighed more than him. One was like a professional boxer with a bad record. In his last fight, he fought Joe Fournier, or the guy that David Haye sparred for a fight. And in that fight, it's like he gets hit with an elbow. They call it a knockout. It's a farce, you know, and then they've ruled that a no contest. Now he's going in with Tommy Fury. This is basically KSI kind of trying to do that sneaky little get back. I'm going to try to beat the guy that beat Jake Paul. But it just feels like there's levels to this. And KSI has a strong following, but I haven't seen his commitment to the sport be the same as Jake Paul. I don't know, bro. I don't find this stuff fascinating. I find Jake Paul fascinating because I think that he views himself as the savior of boxing while being a villain. It's something Greg Bishop brought up to me when I was on ITR Boxing back during my time at ITR Boxing. That's interesting, right? Because there's some weird complexity that can be unpacked. To me, with KSI, I don't really understand his intentions in boxing other than making money. I think there's a cool guy component to it. I think that he also sees a social dynamic to it. But I don't know if what he's doing grows the sport or even brings interest to any relevant fighters. Jake Paul has brought interest to Amanda Serrano, brought interest to Ashton Silva. I don't really see who KSI is bringing in. It just seems like it's a way for kind of nerdy or celebrity type people that have influence to have fights and do these fights for their audience, which is massive. My big fear is if we start prioritizing numbers, these fights are going to be prioritized over fights like Crawford and Spence. So this is my take. Let me know if you feel like these videos are a waste of time. This was something that was heavily requested. I might end up taking this video down because I just feel dirty talking about it.